The Disappeared. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Call. The night was cloaked in a velvety blackness, disturbed only by the occasional flash of lightning. Maya Harper sat alone in her cozy living room, the rain pattering softly against the window. She was engrossed in the latest true crime documentary, Her Secret Indulgence, when her phone rang. The unexpected call startled her, pulling her out of her reverie. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly midnight. Who could be calling at this hour? Maya hesitated for a moment before picking up the phone. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Maya, it's me, Rachel," the voice on the other end said, trembling with fear. "I need your help. I think someone is following me." Rachel Taylor was an old college friend, a person Maya hadn't spoken to in years. Their paths had diverged after graduation, and they had only kept in touch sporadically through social media. Maya's mind raced, trying to understand why Rachel would reach out to her now, after so much time had passed. "Rachel, what's going on? Where are you?" Maya asked, her voice laced with concern. "I'm at home, but I don't feel safe. Can you come over? Please, Maya," Rachel pleaded. Maya's instincts screamed at her to refuse, to stay in the safety of her own home. But Rachel's desperation tugged at her heartstrings. "Okay, I'll be there soon," she said, grabbing her keys and heading out the door. The drive to Rachel's house was a blur. Maya's mind churned with questions and a growing sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. When she finally pulled up to Rachel's house, she saw her friend standing in the doorway, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. "Maya, thank you for coming," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya hugged her friend tightly, trying to offer some semblance of comfort. "It's okay, Rachel. I'm here now. Let's go inside and talk." As they stepped into the dimly lit living room, Maya couldn't help but notice the eerie stillness that hung in the air. Rachel led her to the couch and they sat down. "Tell me what's been going on," Maya urged. Rachel took a deep breath and began to recount the events of the past few weeks. She had been receiving strange messages, first on social media, then through anonymous texts. The messages were cryptic, filled with ominous warnings and veiled threats. At first, Rachel had dismissed them as harmless pranks, but the situation had escalated quickly. She had started noticing a shadowy figure following her, always lurking just out of sight. "I don't know who it is or what they want, but I'm terrified, Maya," Rachel confessed, tears streaming down her face. Maya's heart ached for her friend. She knew they needed to call the police, but something in Rachel's story didn't sit right with her. There was a piece of the puzzle missing, and Maya was determined to find it. "Rachel, is there anything else you're not telling me? Anything that might help us figure out who this is?" Maya pressed gently. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "There is something. A few months ago, I started seeing this guy, Adam. He was charming at first, but he became possessive and controlling. I broke things off with him, but he didn't take it well. I think he might be the one behind all of this." Maya's mind raced as she processed the information. "We need to go to the police, Rachel. This is serious." Rachel nodded, but Maya could see the fear in her eyes. "I know. I don't want to face him again." Maya squeezed her friend's hand reassuringly. "You won't have to. We'll go together, and we'll make sure you're safe." As they prepared to leave for the police station, a loud crash echoed through the house. Both women froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. Someone was inside the house. Chapter 2. The Unseen Threat. Maya's pulse quickened as she scanned the room, searching for the source of the noise. Rachel clutched her arm, her eyes wide with terror. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay here," Maya instructed, grabbing a heavy candlestick from the mantel. "I'm going to check it out." Rachel nodded, too frightened to argue. Maya moved cautiously towards the hallway, her senses heightened. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, sharpening her focus. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of fabric seemed amplified in the eerie silence of the house. As Maya reached the kitchen, she saw the source of the disturbance. The back door was ajar, the lock broken. Her heart sank. Someone had forced their way in. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might come next. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. There was no response, only the sound of the rain pounding against the roof. Maya edged closer to the door, peering into the darkness outside. The storm obscured her vision, but she could make out a shadowy figure moving away from the house. "Rachel, lock yourself in the bathroom and call the police," Maya ordered, her voice firm. Rachel hesitated, then nodded and ran towards the bathroom, her footsteps echoing down the hall. Maya gripped the candlestick tighter and stepped out into the rain-soaked night, determined to confront whoever was terrorizing her friend. She followed the figure at a distance, careful to remain hidden. The wind whipped through the trees, masking the sound of her footsteps. As she drew closer, she could make out more details. The figure was tall and slender, wearing a dark hooded jacket. Maya's mind raced with possibilities. Was this Adam, the ex-boyfriend Rachel had mentioned? Or was it someone else entirely? The figure turned a corner, disappearing from view. Maya quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her ears. When she rounded the corner, she found herself in a small clearing surrounded by dense woods. The figure stood in the center, waiting. "Who are you? What do you want?" Maya demanded, stepping into the clearing. The figure slowly turned to face her, pulling back the hood. It was a man, but not the one she had expected. He had sharp features and cold, calculating eyes that seemed to pierce through her. "You're a brave one," he said, his voice smooth and menacing. "But bravery can be dangerous." Maya tightened her grip on the candlestick, ready to defend herself. "Stay away from Rachel. If you hurt her, I swear I'll make you pay." The man chuckled, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "You have no idea what's really going on, do you? This is much bigger than you or Rachel. You're just pawns in a game you can't even begin to understand." Before Maya could respond, he lunged at her. She swung the candlestick with all her might, but he was quick, dodging the blow and grabbing her wrist. Pain shot through her arm as he twisted it, forcing her to drop the makeshift weapon. "You're coming with me," he said, his grip like iron. Maya struggled, but he was too strong. He dragged her through the woods, the rain soaking them both. Desperation fueled her resistance, but it was no use. She was at his mercy. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a small cabin hidden deep in the woods. The man shoved her inside and locked the door behind them. The interior was dimly lit, filled with strange equipment and papers scattered across every surface. "Sit," he commanded, pushing her into a chair. Maya's mind raced, searching for a way out. "What do you want from me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The man smiled, a chilling expression that made her blood run cold. "You're going to help me send a message." Chapter 3. The Message. Maya's heart raced as she watched the man move about the cabin, gathering various items. The room was filled with an assortment of odd devices, some she couldn't even identify. She could see wires, screens, and a table covered in tools that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. "What kind of message?" she asked, her voice betraying a mix of curiosity and fear. He didn't answer immediately, busying himself with connecting wires to a small, boxy device. When he finally spoke, his tone was matter-of-fact. "A message that will make sure everyone understands the consequences of interfering with our work." "Our work?" Maya echoed, confused. "What are you talking about? I don't even know who you are." The man stopped what he was doing and looked at her, his eyes cold and devoid of emotion. "My name is Victor. Let's just say I'm part of an organization that handles delicate situations. Your friend Rachel got involved in something she shouldn't have, and now we need to set things right." Maya's mind was spinning. She tried to piece together what Victor was saying, but it didn't make any sense. Rachel? What did she do? Victor sighed, as if explaining something to a child. Rachel was digging into things that were best left alone. She found out about our operation and started asking questions, getting too close to the truth. We can't have that. Maya felt a surge of anger. So you threaten her? Stalk her? That's your solution? Victor's expression hardened. It's more complicated than that. We gave her warnings, but she didn't listen. Now we have to make sure she, and anyone else who thinks like her, understands the risks. He picked up a small device and handed it to Maya. You're going to help us send this message. Record a video telling Rachel to back off and drop whatever she's been working on. Maya stared at the device, a mixture of defiance and fear in her eyes. And if I refuse? Victor's smile was devoid of warmth. You won't like the consequences. Swallowing hard, Maya took the device, her mind racing for a way out of this nightmare. She activated the camera and started speaking, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside her. Rachel, it's Maya. I'm with Victor. He's with a group that doesn't want you looking into whatever it is you found. Please, for your safety, stop what you're doing. They won't hesitate to hurt you. Just drop it and stay safe. She handed the device back to Victor, who seemed satisfied with her performance. Good. Now you're going to help us deliver it. Back at Rachel's house, the police had arrived and were combing through the scene, searching for any clues. Rachel was frantic, her fear for Maya's safety overwhelming. She had given the police all the information she could, but it didn't feel like enough. Just as the officers were about to leave, Rachel's phone buzzed with a new message. She opened it with trembling hands, her breath catching in her throat as she saw Maya on the screen, delivering the ominous warning. The video ended abruptly, leaving Rachel in a state of shock. "Officer, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking as she showed the video to the lead detective. The detective watched intently, his brow furrowing with concern. "We need to find her now. This changes everything." Chapter 4. A Desperate Plan. Maya's heart pounded as she and Victor navigated the dark woods. He kept a firm grip on her arm, ensuring she couldn't escape. Her mind raced, trying to come up with a plan. She had to get away and warn Rachel, but she couldn't do it alone. They reached a clearing where a car was parked. Victor opened the trunk, revealing more equipment and a small box with a red light blinking on top. He grabbed the box and handed it to Maya. "You're going to deliver this to Rachel. No tricks. If you try anything, there will be consequences." Maya took the box, her mind working overtime. "And what about you? You're just going to let me walk away?" Victor's eyes narrowed. "You'll be monitored. Don't think for a second you can outrun us. Now go." She nodded, holding the box tightly as she walked towards the road. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and fears. Victor was dangerous, and she had no idea how to outsmart him. But she had to try. Maya walked for what felt like miles, the weight of the box in her hands a constant reminder of the danger she was in. She finally reached a small diner on the edge of town and ducked inside, the warm light and chatter of patrons a stark contrast to the cold, dark woods. She found a payphone in the corner and dialed Rachel's number, praying she would pick up. After a few rings, Rachel's voice came through, shaky and filled with worry. "Maya, are you okay?" "Rachel, listen to me. I'm fine for now, but you need to be careful. I have a device they want me to give you, some kind of message, but I don't trust it. We need to figure out a way to stop them." Rachel's voice was filled with relief and determination. "Where are you? I'll come get you." Maya gave her the location and hung up, her mind racing with the next steps. She couldn't let Victor win. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. When Rachel arrived, Maya quickly explained everything. They decided to take the device to the police, hoping they could help decipher its purpose and use it against Victor and his organization. As they drove to the station, Maya felt a glimmer of hope. They were taking control of the situation, and with the police involved, they might have a chance. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Victor was always one step ahead, watching their every move. Chapter 5. The deception unfolds. The police station was bustling with activity when Maya and Rachel arrived. The moment they stepped through the doors, they were met by Detective Jameson, the lead investigator who had seen the video. He took one look at the two women and ushered them into a private conference room. "Tell me everything," Jameson said, his tone urgent but calm. Maya explained the situation, detailing Victor's threats and the device he had forced her to carry. She handed the box to Jameson, who examined it with a furrowed brow. "We need to be very careful with this," Jameson said. "It could be anything. A bomb, a tracking device, or something even more sinister." Rachel's eyes widened. "What should we do?" Jameson turned to one of his officers. "Get the bomb squad here now, and have tech support ready to analyze this thing. We need to know what we're dealing with." As they waited for the specialists to arrive, Jameson turned his attention back to Maya and Rachel. "This Victor, did he say anything else? Anything that might help us understand what he and his organization want?" Maya shook her head. "He was vague, but he mentioned that Rachel had stumbled upon something she shouldn't have. Something about an operation they want to keep secret." Rachel nodded. "I've been working on an investigative piece about a series of disappearances linked to a local corporation, Borealis Industries. They have a clean public image, but there are whispers of illegal activities, human trafficking, money laundering. I think Victor might be connected to them." Jameson's face hardened. "Borealis Industries, huh? We've had our suspicions, but nothing concrete. This might be the breakthrough we need." The bomb squad arrived, and everyone was instructed to evacuate the immediate area while they worked. The tension in the air was palpable as the experts carefully examined the device. Minutes felt like hours, and Maya's anxiety grew with each passing second. Finally, one of the bomb squad members emerged, his expression grim. "It's not a bomb, it's a transmitter, a very sophisticated one, designed to send a signal when activated." Jameson frowned. "What kind of signal?" The technician hesitated. "It looks like it would trigger some kind of event. We're not sure what, but it's definitely not good." Maya's heart sank. "So they were planning to use it as a threat. If I didn't deliver it to Rachel, something terrible would happen." Jameson nodded. "We need to find out what that something is. We'll take this device to our tech lab and analyze it further. In the meantime, you both need to stay somewhere safe." Maya and Rachel were escorted to a secure location, a small, nondescript house under police guard. The atmosphere was tense, both women unable to shake the feeling that Victor was always watching, always one step ahead. As they settled in, Rachel turned to Maya, her eyes filled with determination. "We can't just sit here and wait. We need to find out more about Borealis Industries and Victor. There has to be something we can do to stop them." Maya nodded. "You're right. We need to take action. But we have to be smart about it. We need allies, and we need to stay one step ahead of Victor." They spent the next few hours combing through Rachel's research, piecing together the puzzle. The more they uncovered, the more it became clear that Borealis Industries was at the center of a vast, shadowy network. They had the money, the power, and the resources to make people disappear without a trace. As the night wore on, a plan began to form. They would go undercover, posing as potential investors interested in Borealis's darker dealings. It was risky, but it was their best shot at getting close to the truth. Chapter 6. Into the Lion's Den. The next morning, Maya and Rachel, disguised as wealthy investors, arrived at Borealis Industries headquarters. They had spent the night preparing, refining their backstory and rehearsing their roles. The police had set up a surveillance team nearby, ready to move in if things went south. The building was an imposing structure of glass and steel, reflecting the morning sun. As they entered the lobby, they were greeted by a sleek, polished receptionist who directed them to the executive floor. The elevator ride was tense, both women acutely aware of the stakes. When the doors opened, they were met by Marcus Lang, the company's smooth-talking head of investor relations. He was all smiles and charm, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that he was sizing them up, trying to see through their facade. "Welcome to Borealis Industries," Lang said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Lang. It's a pleasure to meet you both." "Thank you, Mr. Lang," Maya replied, matching his smile. "We're very interested in learning more about the opportunities your company offers." Lang led them into a luxurious conference room, offering refreshments and making small talk. But as the conversation turned to business, Maya and Rachel steered it towards the more clandestine operations they had heard about. "We've heard whispers," Rachel said, her tone casual but probing, "that Borealis is involved in some unique ventures, high-risk, high-reward opportunities that aren't exactly public knowledge." Lang's smile never faltered, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Suspicion, perhaps. "We do have some exclusive projects, but those are usually reserved for our most trusted partners." "What exactly are you interested in?" Maya leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "We've done our research, Mr. Lang. We know about the disappearances, the trafficking. We're not here to judge. We just want in." There was a long, tense silence. Lang's expression grew serious, and he studied them intently. "Those are serious allegations. If what you're saying is true, then you're either very brave or very foolish." "We're serious investors," Rachel said firmly, "and we're willing to take the risk if the rewards are worth it." Lang sat back, considering their words. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. I'll arrange a meeting with Mr. Donovan. He's the one who handles our special projects. But be warned, if you're lying or if this is some kind of setup, it won't end well for you." The meeting was set for later that evening at a private club owned by Borealis Industries. As Maya and Rachel left the building, they felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. They were walking into the lion's den, and there was no turning back. Back at their safe house, they relayed the details to Detective Jameson and the surveillance team. The plan was to gather as much information as possible and get out before things got dangerous. As the sun set, they prepared for the meeting. Maya felt a knot of fear in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. They were doing this for all the people who had disappeared, for all the lives Borealis had ruined. At the club, they were led to a private room where Mr. Donovan, a stern, imposing figure, awaited them. He wasted no time with pleasantries, getting straight to the point. "So, you're the ones interested in our special projects," Donovan said, his eyes cold and calculating. "Tell me why I should trust you." Maya took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "Because we have the resources and the connections to make it worth your while. And because we're not afraid to get our hands dirty." Donovan studied them for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. But remember, once you're in, there's no getting out." As they delved deeper into the conversation, Maya and Rachel realized just how dangerous their situation had become. They were playing a high-stakes game with powerful, ruthless people. One wrong move and it could all come crashing down. Chapter 7. The final act. The air in the private room was thick with tension. Donovan's cold gaze bore into Maya and Rachel, testing their resolve. They knew they had to tread carefully, for one wrong move could spell disaster. Maya glanced at Rachel, who gave her a subtle nod. They were in this together. Donovan leaned back in his chair, scrutinizing them. "We have a shipment coming in 2 days," he said, his voice low and menacing. "High-value assets. If you're serious about investing, you'll be there to see how we operate." Maya and Rachel exchanged a glance, their expressions neutral. "We'll be there," Maya replied confidently. "Where and when?" Donovan smirked. "The details will be sent to you. Remember, no tricks. We'll be watching." As they left the club, Maya's heart pounded. They had to act fast. Once outside, They slipped into the shadows and made their way to the surveillance team. Detective Jameson listened intently as they recounted the meeting. "We need to intercept that shipment," Maya said urgently. "It's our best chance to gather concrete evidence." Jameson nodded. "Agreed. We'll set up a sting operation. But we need you both to maintain your cover until the last moment. Can you do that?" Maya and Rachel exchanged a determined look. "We can," Rachel said firmly. "Whatever it takes to bring them down." The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Maya and Rachel kept up their facade, attending meetings and feigning interest in Borealis's operations. All the while, the police worked tirelessly behind the scenes, setting up their sting. Finally, the night of the shipment arrived. Donovan had sent the details: an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The location was perfect for their nefarious activities, and equally perfect for the police to stage their operation. Maya and Rachel arrived at the warehouse, trying to ignore the knots of fear in their stomachs. They were greeted by Victor, who eyed them suspiciously. "Follow me," he said curtly. He led them through the dimly lit building to a large room where crates were being unloaded. Men with guns patrolled the area, and the air was thick with tension. Maya scanned the room, noting the exits and the positions of the guards. Donovan stood at the center, overseeing the operation. He smiled when he saw them. "Glad you could make it," he said smoothly. "This is where the magic happens." Maya forced a smile. "Impressive," she said. "We're eager to see the merchandise." Donovan nodded to one of the guards, who opened a crate, revealing rows of frightened, shackled people. Maya's heart clenched at the sight. She had to hold it together, had to play her part until the police were ready to move. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. The guards spun around, guns raised, as police officers swarmed in, shouting orders. Chaos erupted as shots were fired and people scrambled for cover. Maya and Rachel ducked behind a crate, trying to stay out of the line of fire. They watched as Victor and Donovan were taken down by the police, their operation crumbling before their eyes. Relief washed over Maya as she realized they had succeeded. But just as the situation seemed under control, Victor broke free from the officers restraining him. He grabbed a gun and aimed it at Maya and Rachel. Time seemed to slow as Maya saw his finger tighten on the trigger. In a flash, she lunged at him, knocking the gun from his hand. They struggled, but Maya fought with a ferocity fueled by fear and determination. Finally, she managed to subdue him, pinning him to the ground until the police could take him away. Breathing heavily, Maya looked at Rachel, who was shaking but unharmed. They had done it. They had brought down Borealis Industries and saved countless lives. In the days that followed, the story of Borealis's criminal empire made headlines. Maya and Rachel were hailed as heroes, their bravery and determination celebrated by the media and the public. They gave their statements to the police, helping to ensure that Victor, Donovan, and their associates would face justice. As the dust settled, Maya and Rachel found themselves at a crossroads. Their lives had been irrevocably changed by the ordeal, but they were stronger for it. They had faced their fears, uncovered the truth, and emerged victorious. One evening, as they sat together in Maya's living room, Rachel turned to her friend. "We did it, Maya. We really did it." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. "Yes, we did, and we'll keep fighting for what's right. Together." Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. Together, the end. No Way Out, Chapter 1, The Disappearance. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Megan Parker had just put her 2 kids to bed and was settling into the couch with a glass of red wine. The house was finally silent, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Her husband, Dave, was on a business trip in Chicago, leaving Megan to enjoy a rare moment of solitude. She turned on the television, searching for something to watch when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text message from an unknown number. Do you know where your husband is? Her heart skipped a beat. Megan glanced at the clock. 9:15 p.m. Dave should be at his hotel by now, probably catching up on emails. She dismissed the message as a prank and went back to scrolling through the channels. But a nagging feeling made her pick up the phone again. Another text. Are you sure? Panic set in. Megan dialed Dave's number. The phone rang twice before going to voicemail. She tried again, and again it went to voicemail. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe he was in a meeting or his phone was off. But the texts had her on edge. She decided to call his hotel. Hello, Hilton, Chicago. How may I assist you? Hi, this is Megan Parker. I'm trying to reach my husband, Dave Parker. He's a guest there. One moment, please. The hold music was almost soothing, but Megan's anxiety kept her on edge. The receptionist returned. I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no guest by that name. Megan's stomach dropped. She ended the call and tried his cell again. Voicemail. With trembling hands, she dialed his office number, praying someone would still be there. After 3 rings, a familiar voice answered. Mark Jenkins speaking. Mark, it's Megan. Have you heard from Dave? He was supposed to be in Chicago, but I can't reach him, and the hotel says he's not there. There was a pause. Megan, Dave isn't in Chicago. He took a few days off. Didn't he tell you? Megan's mind went blank. No, he didn't. Mark hesitated. Megan, there's something you need to know. The doorbell rang, cutting him off. Megan's heart pounded as she approached the door, her mind racing with the possibilities of what Mark was about to reveal. She opened the door to find 2 police officers standing on her porch. Mrs. Parker? One of them asked. Yes, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. We need to talk about your husband. Chapter 2. Secrets Unveiled. The officers stepped inside, their expressions grim. Megan's mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. She led them to the living room, where they sat down, the tension in the room palpable. Mrs. Parker, I'm Detective John Martinez, and this is Officer Karen Lewis. We're here about your husband, Dave. The detective began. What's happened? Is he okay? Megan's voice trembled. We're not sure yet. We received a report from a neighbor who saw someone matching Dave's description entering an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town earlier today. He hasn't been seen since. Megan's heart raced. That can't be. Dave is supposed to be in Chicago. The detective exchanged a glance with Officer Lewis. We have reason to believe Dave may have been involved in something more complicated. We need to ask you a few questions. Megan nodded, her mind struggling to process everything. Of course. When was the last time you spoke to your husband? Yesterday morning, before he left for his trip. Did he seem unusual? Any different behavior? Megan shook her head. No, he was his usual self. Stressed about work, but nothing out of the ordinary. Detective Martinez leaned forward. Mrs. Parker, we found his car near the warehouse. Do you know why he would be there? Megan's mind raced. No, I have no idea. Officer Lewis handed her a photograph. Do you recognize this man? Megan looked at the photo, her blood running cold. It was Dave, but he looked different, older, tired, and scared. She shook her head. No, I don't. The detective's eyes softened. We believe Dave might have been living a double life. We need your help to find out the truth. Tears welled up in Megan's eyes. I don't understand. What do you mean? We've been tracking a series of financial irregularities connected to a man named David Parker. We believe your husband may have been involved. Megan's world spun. No, that can't be. Dave would never. Detective Martinez placed a reassuring hand on her arm. We know this is hard, but we need to find him. Any information you can provide could be crucial. Megan took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I don't know anything about this, but I'll do whatever I can to help. The detective nodded. Thank you. We'll start by tracing his last known activities. In the meantime, if you think of anything, no matter how small, please let us know." Megan watched as the officers left, her mind reeling. She grabbed her phone and called Mark back. "Mark, what were you going to tell me about Dave?" There was a long pause before Mark replied, "Megan, I think Dave was in trouble. Serious trouble. You need to be careful." Megan's heart sank as she ended the call. She knew her life was about to change forever, but she had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole would go. Chapter 3. The Unraveling. The night was sleepless for Megan. Every creak of the house seemed amplified. Every shadow loomed larger. She clutched her phone, waiting for any sign of Dave. Morning came, but with it, no answers. Her children's innocent laughter was a painful reminder of the normalcy that had slipped through her fingers. After breakfast, Megan decided to search Dave's home office for clues. The room was neat, a testament to Dave's meticulous nature. She rifled through drawers, examined files, but found nothing unusual. Then, in the bottom drawer of his desk, she discovered a small, locked box. Her curiosity piqued. She rummaged through the desk until she found the key, taped under a drawer. Inside the box were several passports, each with a different name but all with Dave's photograph. Megan's heart pounded as she flipped through them. What had her husband been involved in? She also found a flash drive and a burner phone. She plugged the flash drive into Dave's laptop, her hands shaking. Files popped up, encrypted documents, and a few videos. She clicked on the first video. It was of Dave looking haggard and anxious. "If you're watching this, Megan, it means something has gone very wrong," he began. "I never wanted you to be involved, but I had no choice. They were threatening our family." Tears streamed down Megan's face as she watched Dave confess to being part of a high-stakes financial fraud scheme. He mentioned a man named Victor Rinaldi, who had forced him into laundering money. Dave had planned to gather evidence to bring Victor down, but it seemed he had been discovered. The video ended abruptly, leaving Megan in shock. She knew she had to get this information to the police, but first she needed to understand more about Victor Rinaldi. She grabbed the burner phone and called the number listed under Victor. "What do you want?" a gruff voice answered. Megan took a deep breath. "I need to talk. About Dave Parker." There was a long silence. "Meet me at the old warehouse in an hour. Come alone. And don't try anything stupid." The line went dead. Megan knew it was a risk, but she had to find out what had happened to Dave. She scribbled a quick note for her neighbor to watch the kids, grabbed her coat, and headed out. The drive to the warehouse was nerve-wracking. Every car that passed made her jump. She parked a few blocks away and approached the building cautiously. The warehouse was dilapidated, its windows broken and walls covered in graffiti. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Victor was waiting for her, flanked by two intimidating men. His eyes narrowed as she approached. "You're Dave's wife," he stated rather than asked. "Yes," Megan replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Where is he?" Victor laughed coldly. "Your husband was a fool. He thought he could outsmart me. Now he's paying the price." Megan's blood ran cold. "Is he alive?" "For now," Victor said, a sinister smile creeping across his face. "But that could change very quickly. It all depends on you." "What do you want from me?" she demanded, fear turning into anger. Victor stepped closer. "I want the files Dave was going to use against me. All of them. And you have 24 hours to get them to me, or you'll never see your husband again." Megan's mind raced. "I don't know where they are." Victor's smile disappeared. "You'd better find them. And remember, no police, or he's dead." He turned and walked away, leaving Megan standing in the dark, the weight of his threat pressing down on her. She had 24 hours to save Dave, but she had no idea where to start. Chapter 4. Racing the Clock. Megan drove home in a daze, her mind a storm of fear and determination. She had to save Dave, but she also had to be smart about it. she decided to call Detective Martinez. If anyone could help, it was him. But she couldn't risk Victor finding out. "Detective, it's Megan Parker," she said when he answered. "I found something, but we need to be discreet." "Tell me what you have," Martinez replied. "I can't do it over the phone. Can you come to my house? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Megan ended the call and quickly gathered the passports, flash drive, and burner phone. She hid them in the pantry, behind a row of cereal boxes, and waited. True to his word, Detective Martinez arrived promptly. "What did you find?" he asked as soon as he was inside. Megan handed him the flash drive and the burner phone. "Dave left these. He's involved in something big, something dangerous. A man named Victor Rinaldi has him. He gave me 24 hours to deliver the files Dave was gathering against him." Martinez's expression darkened as he examined the items. "This is serious. Rinaldi is a known criminal. If Dave was trying to bring him down, he's in deep trouble. We have to save him," Megan pleaded. "But we can't let Rinaldi know you're involved." Martinez nodded. "I understand. I'll get my tech team to analyze these files. In the meantime, I'll place a discreet surveillance team around your house. We can't let Rinaldi suspect anything." Megan felt a small surge of relief. At least she wasn't alone in this. "Thank you, Detective." As Martinez left, Megan's phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "Time is ticking, Megan. Don't make me do something you'll regret." Her heart pounded as she stared at the screen. She knew she had to act fast. She spent the next few hours scouring Dave's office for any additional clues. In one of the bookshelves, she found a hidden compartment containing more documents and a second flash drive. She quickly copied the contents to her laptop, praying it would be enough to satisfy Rinaldi. As night fell, Megan's anxiety grew. She hadn't heard back from Martinez, and the deadline was looming. Just as she was about to call him, her phone rang. "Megan, it's Detective Martinez. We've decrypted the files. They're damning, enough to put Rinaldi away for life. But we need more time to ensure we can protect Dave and bring him in safely." Megan's heart sank. "We don't have more time. Rinaldi gave me until tomorrow. Then we need to stall him, give him just enough to keep him from harming Dave, but not enough to jeopardize the investigation." Megan nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I'll do it. Just promise me you'll find Dave." "We will. Stay strong, Megan." As she ended the call, Megan knew what she had to do. She prepared a decoy set of files, mixing genuine information with misleading data. It was risky, but it was their only hope. The next morning, Megan arrived at the warehouse, her heart pounding. Victor was waiting, his cold eyes assessing her as she approached. "Do you have what I asked for?" he demanded. Megan handed him the flash drive, trying to keep her hands steady. "This is everything I could find. Please, just let Dave go." Victor plugged the flash drive into his laptop, his expression unreadable as he scanned the files. After what felt like an eternity, he looked up, a cruel smile on his lips. "Well done, Megan. This will do for now. But remember, if you're lying to me, you'll both pay the price." He gestured to his men, and they dragged a battered and bruised Dave into the room. Megan's heart leaped at the sight of him. "You have 48 hours to get me the rest," Victor said, his tone final. "Or this will be the last time you see him alive." As they pushed Dave into her arms, Megan knew the clock was still ticking. She had bought them some time, but the real fight was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Trap. Megan supported Dave as they stumbled out of the warehouse, his weight heavy against her. Despite his injuries, he managed a weak smile. "You came for me," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Of course I did," Megan replied, tears of relief and fear mixing on her cheeks. "But we're not out of this yet. We have to get you somewhere safe." They drove in silence, the gravity of their situation sinking in. Megan headed to a safe house Martinez had arranged. It was a small cabin in the woods, isolated and away from prying eyes. She helped Dave inside and laid him on the couch, checking his injuries. They were bad, but nothing that couldn't heal with time. "Dave, you need to tell me everything," she said, her voice firm. "We don't have much time, and the police need to know exactly what we're dealing with." Dave nodded, wincing as he adjusted himself. "It all started about a year ago. I got involved with some risky investments. I was trying to make enough money for us to retire early. But it went south fast, and that's when Victor found me." Megan listened intently as Dave recounted the details. Victor had coerced him into laundering money, threatening their family if he didn't comply. Dave had started collecting evidence in secret, hoping to expose Victor and end the nightmare. But Victor had discovered his plan and kidnapped him before he could finish. "We have to use what you've gathered," Megan said. "The police can protect us, but we need to make sure they have enough to bring Victor down for good." Dave agreed, and they spent the next few hours organizing the files. Megan updated Detective Martinez, who assured her they were closing in on Victor's operation, but they needed more concrete evidence to ensure a conviction. Just as they were about to send the final batch of files to Martinez, there was a loud bang on the door. Megan's heart raced as she peeked through the window. It was Victor's men. "They found us," she whispered to Dave. "We need to leave now." Dave struggled to his feet, and they slipped out the back door, disappearing into the woods. Megan led them through the trees, her heart pounding in her chest. They could hear the men searching the cabin, their voices growing closer. "We have to keep moving," Megan urged. "They'll catch us if we stop." They ran through the woods, the darkness concealing them but also making it harder to navigate. Megan's mind raced, trying to think of their next move. They needed to get to a place with cell service to call Martinez. Finally, they emerged onto a road. Megan spotted a gas station a short distance away. They hurried towards it, hoping to find a phone. As they entered, the clerk looked up, startled by their disheveled appearance. "Please, we need to use your phone," Megan said urgently. The clerk hesitated but handed her the phone. Megan dialed Martinez's number, praying he would answer. "Detective, it's Megan. They found us. We're at a gas station off Route 17. Stay there. I'm sending a team right now," Martinez replied, his voice tense. Megan handed the phone back and helped Dave to a seat. They waited, every passing second feeling like an eternity. Finally, police sirens pierced the silence, and a squad of cars pulled into the gas station. Martinez emerged, his face grim. "We're going to take you somewhere safe. But we need to end this once and for all." Megan nodded, her resolve hardening. "What's the plan?" Chapter 6. The Final Confrontation. The safe house Martinez brought them to was much more secure, with several officers stationed around the perimeter. Megan and Dave were briefed on the plan. The police would set a trap for Victor, using the remaining files as bait. They needed Victor to take the evidence in person, ensuring they had enough to arrest him and dismantle his operation. "We'll need you both to help lure him in," Martinez said. "It's risky, but it's the only way." Megan and Dave exchanged a look. They knew it was dangerous, but they also knew it was their best chance to end this nightmare. The next day, Megan contacted Victor, telling him she had the rest of the files and was willing to make a deal. Victor, suspicious but intrigued, agreed to meet. The location was a deserted warehouse, chosen by the police to give them the upper hand. As the time for the meeting approached, Megan's nerves were on edge. She and Dave were wired with hidden microphones, and Martinez's team was in place, ready to move at a moment's notice. Victor arrived, flanked by his men. His eyes narrowed as he saw Megan and Dave standing alone in the middle of the warehouse. "You have what I want?" Victor demanded. Megan nodded, holding up a flash drive. "This is everything, but you have to promise to let us go." Victor laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You're in no position to negotiate," He stepped forward, and just as he reached for the flash drive, the doors of the warehouse burst open. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Victor's men scrambled, but they were quickly overpowered. Victor turned to run, but Dave tackled him to the ground. The two men struggled, but Dave, fueled by desperation and anger, managed to pin Victor down until the officers reached them. As they cuffed Victor, Martinez approached Megan and Dave. "You did it. He's going away for a long time." Megan felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was over. They were finally safe. Epilogue. The weeks following Victor's arrest were a blur of legal proceedings and media attention. But through it all, Megan and Dave stayed strong, supporting each other and rebuilding their lives. The files Dave had collected were more than enough to ensure Victor's conviction and the dismantling of his criminal empire. With Victor behind bars, Megan and Dave found a new sense of normalcy. They moved to a new town, started fresh, and focused on their family. The nightmare they had lived through brought them closer, strengthening their bond. One evening, as they sat on their porch, watching their children play, Megan took Dave's hand. "We made it," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Dave nodded, his eyes reflecting the same relief. "We did, and we'll keep making it together." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over their new home, Megan knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had found their way out of the darkness and into the light, and that was all that mattered. Chapter 7. Aftermath. Months had passed since the harrowing ordeal with Victor Rinaldi. Megan and Dave settled into their new life, taking solace in the simple pleasures they had once taken for granted. Their new home was in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by friendly neighbors who knew nothing of their past. Megan found a job at a local bookstore, a far cry from the corporate world she had left behind, but infinitely more peaceful. Dave started his own consulting business, operating under a new name to distance himself from the chaos they had escaped. Their children adjusted well, making new friends and thriving in their new school. One evening, as Megan was closing up the bookstore, a familiar face walked in. It was Detective Martinez, a somber expression on his face. "Detective," Megan greeted, surprised. "What brings you here?" Martinez took off his hat, holding it in his hands. "I'm afraid I have some news. It's about Victor." Megan's heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" "He escaped custody 2 days ago. We've been tracking him, but he's gone underground. We believe he might try to come after you and Dave." Fear gripped Megan. "What do we do?" "We've increased patrols around your neighborhood and set up surveillance. But I need you to be vigilant. If you see anything suspicious, call me immediately." Megan nodded, her mind racing. "Thank you, Detective. We'll be careful." As Martinez left, Megan quickly closed the bookstore and rushed home. She found Dave in the kitchen, preparing dinner, a look of concern crossing his face as he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, putting down the knife. "Victor escaped," she said, her voice shaking. "Martinez thinks he might come after us." Dave's face paled. "We need to be ready. I'll check the security system." They spent the evening ensuring their home was secure, double-checking locks and setting up additional cameras. Megan called their children to the living room, explaining the situation in the simplest terms, urging them to be cautious. That night, sleep was elusive. Every noise outside felt amplified, every shadow more menacing. Megan lay awake, her mind racing with what-ifs. She knew Victor was ruthless, and the thought of him being free filled her with dread. The next day, as Megan opened the bookstore, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to Victor. She glanced at the clock, counting the hours until she could go home and feel somewhat safe again. As she was stacking books on a shelf, the bell above the door jingled. Megan looked up, her heart stopping as she saw Victor standing there, a twisted smile on his face. "Hello, Megan," he said, his voice cold. "Miss me?" Megan's mind went blank with fear. What do you want? Victor took a step closer, his eyes dark with malice. You and Dave ruined my life. Now it's time to return the favor. Before Megan could react, Victor grabbed her, dragging her towards the back of the store. She struggled, but he was too strong. He pressed a gun to her side, the cold metal sending a chill down her spine. Let's go for a little drive, Victor whispered menacingly. And don't try anything stupid. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. Victor forced Megan into a car parked in the alley behind the bookstore. Her mind raced as she tried to think of a way out. She needed to stay calm and buy time. The police would be looking for her soon, and she had to believe they would find her. They drove in silence, the tension in the car palpable. Victor's grip on the steering wheel was tight, his knuckles white with rage. Megan's heart pounded as she considered her options. She glanced at the dashboard, noting the time. If she could just stall long enough, help would arrive. Finally, they arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Victor shoved her out of the car and marched her inside, the gun still pressed against her back. The warehouse was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and decay. Victor pushed her into a chair and tied her hands behind her back. He stood in front of her, his eyes blazing with anger. You and Dave thought you could get away with ruining my life, he snarled. But you were wrong. Now you're going to pay. Megan met his gaze, refusing to show fear. You won't get away with this, Victor. The police will find you. Victor laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the empty warehouse. They can try, but by the time they get here, it'll be too late. Megan's mind raced. She needed to keep him talking, to stall for time. Why are you doing this, Victor? What do you hope to gain? Revenge, he spat. You and Dave destroyed everything I built. Now, I'm going to destroy you. Megan's heart pounded as she heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. She knew she had to keep him distracted a little longer. Victor, please, she said, her voice trembling. Think about what you're doing. You can still walk away from this. It's too late for that, Victor replied, his voice cold. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. The sirens grew louder, and Megan's hope surged. She needed to keep him talking, to buy just a few more minutes. Victor, you don't have to do this, she pleaded. You can still turn yourself in. We can help you. Victor's eyes flashed with anger. Help me? It's too late for that. Just as he raised the gun, the warehouse doors burst open. Detective Martinez and a team of officers stormed in, their guns drawn. Drop the weapon, Victor, Martinez shouted. Victor hesitated for a moment, then turned the gun on Megan. Before he could pull the trigger, a shot rang out. Victor collapsed to the ground, the gun falling from his hand. Martinez rushed to Megan, untying her and helping her to her feet. Are you okay? He asked, his voice filled with concern. Megan nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm okay. Thank you. As the officers secured Victor, Megan felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was finally over. Victor was in custody, and she and Dave were safe. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. Megan and Dave resumed their routine, grateful for the second chance they had been given. The nightmare they had lived through had brought them closer, and they knew they could face anything as long as they were together. One evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the sunset, Dave took Megan's hand. We made it, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Megan smiled, squeezing his hand. We did, and no matter what happens, we'll always have each other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their home, Megan knew that they had found their way out of the darkness. They were stronger together, and that was all that mattered. The end. If you enjoyed our story, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.